Well, welcome to New Tracks Meetup. Really appreciate you coming this evening. Hope you come back often and tell your friends to join us. If you are new or you haven't done so far, please go to our website, newtracksmodeling.com, newtracksmodeling.com, and register, and we'll send you an email so that you'll know about all of our future shows and our train shows. The train shows. We had one November the 21st. Last time I heard from Dylan about the number of people who had seen it, it was around 1,200. And our next show is going to be January the 16th and 17th of 2021. If you can believe we're getting into a new year already. And we're looking forward to even a better show for that. We've got two great sponsors, Great Scale Model Train Show and MRH Media LLC. And we really are pleased that both of them thought enough of the train shows to want to sponsor it. And we really do appreciate all the help and advice that they've given us so far. We're having the next My Bill, which is an opportunity for everybody to show us what you're modeling and talk to us about it and let us enjoy your abilities and hopefully learn from how you're doing things. So the next one is December the 12th. And Dylan, if you would put Chris's email up, Chris, of course, is the one that moderates that for us. And if you'll send Chris an email, he'll make sure that you get on the show. The last time we did it, we had more people than we could accommodate. So Chris needs to know how many people to expect so that he can try to make sure that everybody gets a fair chance. Now I'd like to turn to a gentleman who does our modeling quick tips, Paul Thompson. This was Paul's idea for particularly new modelers who may not want to spend a lot of time trying to figure out how to be a model railroader, but could appreciate some quick tips along the way that may be able to help them in their modeling. So Paul, thank you so much for doing this with us, and I'll turn it over to you, sir.
Great, thank you very much, Jim. Dylan, I forgot to load up on my end. Can you throw up the pictures, please?
You got it.
Start with number one. Tonight's tip is going to be something quick, I hope. I was out at the local 5 and 10 or variety store kind of thing, and I got into a section here and noticed something that was really interesting. Organization is one of the things that we really need to spend a little bit of time with, and this was one of the tricks that I saw. So these things I found in the 5 and dime store, and they were dirt cheap. And being cheap, I loved it. So therefore, for less than $1, I actually picked up some really nifty containers, which are quite useful for small parts, little bits, etc. Dylan, next slide, please. This one was really neat. It cost me next to nothing, as I say. It had little capsules inside. As you can see, I'm already sort of loading parts into it. And the nice thing about this was it had each of these little capsules had a screw cap, and it's plastic, so clear. The other nice thing about storage is if it's clear and you can see it, you can use it. Next slide, please, Dylan. At the same time, I found these nifty little bottles. They're glass. There again, for $1, I got 5 of them. And my plan is, if parts don't work, these are going to be ideal for putting in paints that I custom mix and need, over 1 or 2 days. So there again, real cheap. Now, when you get really cheap, next slide, please, Dylan. These 2 items come from my wife's cosmetics once she was done with them. They're quality containers. They seal nicely. And all I can say is don't use the stuff in them, just get rid of it. Next slide, please, Dylan. This one was really nifty for little springs. It's clear plastic. I can see the little springs. These are for Sergeant couplers. And the nice thing about this is it's non-magnetic, and the plastic is thick enough so that I don't really have to worry about static. Next slide, please, Dylan. These last two were free, by the way. So, I mean, you just raid after your wife is done with them. This was a sandwich container that I got something like 25 for, I think at this point it was $10, but it was relatively cheap. I keep all kinds of parts in them. And this I got at Costco. So all I'm saying is there again, you've got a nice clear top. You can see what's going on and it seals up nicely and keeps things organized. And that's my tip for tonight. Keep things organized and you'll be well on your way. Thank you.
I'd like to jump. This is Kevin. Fantastic finds. I've seen jars like that before. Did you test the one you called a paint jar? Did you test to see if it was liquid tight? Did you try putting something in there and seeing if it came out? Did it hold?
I didn't actually test it yet. I just got these things. To be quite honest with you, I'm not too worried about it being liquid tight because I'll put a little piece of saran wrap over the top and
You
then
beat
screw
me
the
to
top
it.
down.
Right. You beat me to it. But I would argue, well, the one that's even better for paint, and if you could share that smaller one, if you are doing any kind of detail work and you need like 4, 5, 6 colors, that is like having a little palette tray, and then you save all 5, 6 colors for blending. I think that's one of the best finds I've seen in a long time. Actually, those very, very little ones, and use that for paint, because then or weathering, I think that's fantastic, because what I find is when I'm doing small batch paint, I get a color, I put it on my little mixing thing, which I buy at the dollar store too. You can buy them at $1 for the dollar store, or you can buy them for $10 at a specialty train shop online. But the problem is it dries out. And I'd like to keep, if I wanted to keep that color for another night or two while I'm working on something, I think that's a phenomenal find. Now, I do something similar. I find that little black tray you had there at the very end, you get almost an identical one out of frozen meal trays. They're very square as well. And I use those all the time as well. Those food containers are fantastic.
Yeah,
And
they are.
I don't know, you haven't seen it here, but on Facebook, I built a poor man's tool chest out of a credenza. And I'm showing how I organize all my paints and my supplies. That's what I'm known for, is paint. I'm the paint guy. And I'd like to share that with you offline, but I think those are great tips and wanted to say thank you, because I don't often get to see new stuff.
Good. Send me a link and any of your tips. I'd like to use them or let you use them.
I'll let you use
Thanks,
them.
Jim.
Well, thank you so much, Kevin. Thank you, Paul. I really do appreciate it. Well, you've heard a little bit from Kevin, but he and I don't know where Phil is. Maybe he'll join us a little later. But the reason I asked Kevin, Macomber and Phil to be here tonight is both of them are really experienced and knowledgeable businessmen. Now, forget the hobby. They are experienced and knowledgeable businessmen, period. In real life, they are significant business leaders in their areas, and they came to model railroading. So then they got involved with the business of model railroading. Kevin is one of the most successful, if not the most successful, wholesaler, I guess, or distributor of model railroading equipment around. And when I talked both of them, I said, I keep hearing people ask questions about, well, I want to be in business, but I'm not sure. Well, boy, I got a question about this or that. So I've asked them to be here tonight to talk to you about the model railroad business. What's it like, and maybe how to be more successful. Mm-hmm. And Ken, I really do appreciate it, and I'll turn it over to you.
Well, I think how many people do we have here tonight, Dylan?
I've got 30 people in here right now. We've got another 5 watching on YouTube now with more trickling in.
Fantastic. Hey, Dylan, that's a nice backdrop there.
I think it is.
I like your company name too. Who thought of that?
Oh, you.
So, no, I love to joke. I'm known for a lot of things. It's interesting. I sort of backdoored the hobby. For those that don't know, I'm a decorated and disabled veteran. got fairly severely injured in my service. And model railroading became my new family, my new party guys, where I spend all my time and my creative outlet. And so as I got into it, and if you haven't heard the story, I'll make it very brief. I couldn't find anything. And it's very, if anybody here is trying to be an above average model railroader, you find the same thing. The source of information, of good information. And like Dylan mentioned, YouTube, you go out on YouTube and it's very, even there, very hard to find good information, or a bunch of hacks pretending, often the case, but finding good information. The same problem is in products. And it's just the way that the hobby was set up traditionally, you know, with Walthers sort of being the mainstay, not the only one, but the mainstay, meaning, okay, in the hobby, if products are going to be bought and sold, it's going through us. And the stores will buy from us. And I don't know about them, but the other distributors now that do it, oh, we'll give you finance terms. And then we all understand, if you're in big business, you understand that inventory is evil. And their inventory positions have been lagging for years. They've a lot of them have grossly overstated what products they actually carry. And in the mean of that, unless you were a big player, and there were some small players, if you knew the right people, your product lines got forgotten. And then it was up to either, it used to be to a forum that would, you know, you'd word of mouth, or if they had their own page, like O Scale Kings has a list of O Scale vendors as an example. They do a fantastic job, actually. Or you would go to the website and just poke around till you found something, but you couldn't find products. And I realized, wow, being in a big business, and I mean, I was big business, over $500 million with another guy running 27 companies. And you may not have known all of our brands, but our brands put together about everything you use that had some kind of mechanical fit. So I learned a lot there. I said, oh my God, there's a business here. So that's the story. Moving into model railroading, the opportunity to start a new business is simply fantastic. To give you a feel, I just had my fifth year anniversary. And we've really gotten big. Dylan has seen how big I've gotten, and he's been part of my escapades to getting inventory before. But I remember when I once came home, you remember from Valley Model Trains, Dylan, and all that paint, it was all filthy.
Oh God, I remember. I still have nightmares about it.
You should. So I said, you know what, look at this stuff. And you have to put in context, it was 2,000 bottles of paint in milk crates. And it was all filthy, dirty, and covered in all kinds of nastiness and mouse poop and stuff. And I brought it in the kitchen, and the wife was pretty unpleased. And she thought I lost my mind. Flash forward, she saw that I created an entire industry of recycling obsolete paint, to where now I am the leading supplier of hobby paint, of obsolete hobby paint in North America, if not the world now. You know, I probably, as of today, have over 6,000 bottles of paint that are no longer manufactured. And I had to hand the home phone to my wife and say, make sure you pick this up if it rings. The phone rings 1, 2, 3 times every day from people all around the country looking to buy paint from me. And that's just one tiny, tiny little part of my business. So the sign of a successful business today was I bought 800 bottles of paint today. Doesn't sound like a lot, but I guess it is. I don't know what it is either. So I paid for it, and I said, okay, just ship it to me. I knew long term, because I keep getting the paint, people will come. So where I'm going with that is, you know, if you have a passion, so my passion is a hobby. And so the passion wasn't just to make money, which I've done extremely well. It was to help fellow modelers who helped me. You know, like right here, you guys, like, so when Paul gives that tip of that cap, I mean, I'm thrilled. That's freaking fantastic. That's like one of the best tips I've seen in a very, very long time. That one little plastic cap, I go, that's freaking brilliant. You could sell those things and make a fortune off of it. Thank you, Paul. And, but it came out that I was giving back to the hobby. So it's interesting, my calls that get to me now for the paint aren't like, oh my gosh, you sell paint. They go more under the thing is like, I am stuck. I can't finish my model. Can you help me finish my model? And I said, of course I can. What do you need? And because I've got the largest paint cross reference, I mean, I know more about paint than anybody does. I mean, I studied it for years. Now it's not really selling paint, it's helping a person finish your model. That's a whole different realm of being, in business, where you're helping the customer, and of course they help back, and that's all good. So what we're seeing in the market now is, and I know a couple players, it is changing dramatically. I don't know about distribution. I don't know how well they're doing with product, but I have enough feelers in the market that, on some things that should be readily available now are still not available. And it really starts telling you, okay, what's the viability of these companies? And these are big players. I heard one of the big motive companies is back for sale again, and it's not MTH. We already know MTH. It's another one. And it really gets you going, oh my goodness, what's going for the hobby? So what I'm seeing is the hobby is really reverting back to the 50s and 60s. Yeah, you had a few players, but there were a lot of, 1-2 person operations making the majority of stuff for the hobby. You've got Dylan here with Lambert Locomotive Works, of course, and he's a prime example of a guy I've mentored. And I don't want to take credit for it because Dylan's done a lot of the heavy lifting himself, of course, but somebody who's a nobody. Still, really, nobody knows him because he's still only in the narrow O community in a very, very finite offering. But he would hit a home run in my book of any new business. I think a lot of these small businesses don't realize a guy like him is already making more than most of the small businesses out there. And that's the opportunity. If you have a passion, if you want to do something, now has never been a better time. It's just incredible. I can't even put words out. I'm slammed. It literally, the orders they're just rolling in right now. It's unbelievable. And that sounds good for me, but it also is very concerning to me because I talk to the customers. How did you find me? What are you looking for? And I hear their desperation of saying, like, I can't find anybody to sell me this stuff. They call a hobby store. I'm not beating up Hobby Lobby, but they're effectively useless for model railroading. You can go there and get some stuff, but it's very limited. When you look at the wall and they have one package of weathering stuff on the wall made by Ammo or Vallejo, and then they have one bottle of Model Master or 2 bottles of Vallejo. I mean, that's not a commitment to the hobby. That's screwing around and just trying to placate people and, trying to cover your bases. That doesn't help the hobby. So there's a lot of opportunities there. Talking to you folks tonight, last call we had, there were a couple people that showed interest in starting a business. I did follow up with one, and he wasn't ready yet, which is understandable because starting a business is a lot of time. It's a lot of effort. It's a lot of time. It's a lot of effort. It's a 7-day-a-week job, and you will do it every day. And you have to come to expect that up front. But the rewards are incredible. I think besides the financial rewards, which this has grown much bigger than I could anticipate, and I'm ready to announce the acquisition of my 6th company, which will turn a lot of heads. It really will. It's a big move in the O scale market in terms of me and my commitment to the hobby. But it is really neat being able to help people. If you look at the model railroad community, most of us are quirkish. I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't party. I'm in bed usually by 8:30, 9 o'clock every night, usually reading a train book every night. In the morning, I'm usually turn the TV on. I'm watching a train video while drinking my coffee, and it's my life. And, the people you meet in this hobby are spectacular. I think each hobby has spectacular people, but the model railroading is different just because of the pure numbers of it. I mean, you look, I'm here in central Pennsylvania, I'm in Harrisburg, and I'm shocked by the dozens and dozens of people within 20, 30 miles of me that are in model railroading. That's incredible. So that's where I'm coming from. So, I guess it now, I'm sort of done talking. I'm always here. We don't have to have the discussion tonight. We can always do it offline. Jim sends people to me. Dylan sends people to me. Is there anybody here that wanted to start a business and just run an idea across tonight? Otherwise, maybe we can go down another topic and, see how we can help somebody tonight.
Hi, yes. Can you guys hear me?
I can. Hi, Jay.
Hi, yeah, I was actually wanting to start like a repair business. Kind of forgive me. I'm trying to wash dishes and cook supper at the same time. The kids will be home soon. And I'm learning how to use Zoom all at the same time. So
It never gets better, by the way. And if you're in business like me as an executive, I've been working at home since 2004. And kids and dogs know how to go off when you're on the phone. And I gave up, and everybody knows now because more people get it now that they're working home, going like, okay, they're just let them beat the hell out of one another. Let's get.
yeah, I kind of reversed that role, and my parents were raised in the '60s, so you can imagine the discipline I got, and I passed. You understand what I mean? I will not say certain words on a potentially recorded line, but yes, I practiced what I was taught.
There you go.
So, but everything's well deserved when they do get the practice.
So what are you thinking about? What's on your mind tonight?
Well, I'd really like to get started in repairing of locomotives, specifically HO. But I do know how to repair everything down to Z scale. I've played with it all up to G scale, and I would love to get into building full size, like quarter scale locomotives. I'd love to get into building that eventually. And
But you just want to do prairie locomotives, correct?
No. I don't want to do repair, but that's something I want to get into as a personal thing. Is the large outdoor locomotives, bigger than G scale. I think the quarter scale, that's what I'd like to get into personally next. But
it's interesting. I've observed that before. And actually, there's a manufacturer not too far from me. And there's never been much organization. I think, particularly in that very large scale, what you see is word of mouth. And I think there's a huge opportunity. I'm surprised, by the way, when you look at, for everybody who's not there, these engines are big. These are the ones you ride around. And, I was blessed. The best one I ever went to was in LA County Park. They've got this huge, massive park where these beautiful engines are. And then there's a smaller size that they sort of put on pedestals and they run. And oh my God, these things are beautiful. I'll tell you what, people pay big money.
But that's what I would really like to get into. And I called, or Jim called me, and we had a nice long talk. And he's the one convinced me to come here tonight and talk with you guys.
Good.
And like I was saying, I've just been doing repair on HO locomotives since I think I was 9 when I got my first life set. And I just, it's something I've always been interested in, was the repair and upkeep of HO scale locomotives and like custom building. I got 3 or 4 parts of boxes sitting around, and almost every night I build a new -9 out of parts. So, yeah, I mean, well, I go on eBay and I just scour eBay for hours. Up there they are. And I love rebuilding. I don't know if you guys can see this, but
is your video off? I can't see anything.
I don't know if my video is off or on. I'm not. Yeah. Okay, it says my microphone is unmuted. Can you see me now?
I can't see.
Let's see what we got going on here.
Okay,
it says I'm linked. Like I said,
Dylan, can you help him?
Jay, are you on a phone or on a computer?
Oh, there we go. It says you cannot start your video because the host has disabled it. Your host has asked you to start your video. Start my video. All right.
There
we
you
go.
are.
I'm sorry. Like I said, I was trying to wash dishes and everything at one time, but this is one I'm working on. It's a heritage unit of my own makings, half chassis, half seaboard. You know, it's just like, but this one was built solely out of parts. I managed to scrape up off of eBay, and I probably have like $8 in parts. And if I didn't have the couplers in it, I'd take it off and show you. But I've actually rebuilt it up to Genesis standards as far as the trucks and drive systems go. So, you know, that's the stuff I like to do.
And do
is
you
get
actually
old
have
blue.
customers? Do you have customers for that?
No, I would love to start getting customers for that, because one of the big problems I found, the noise that Ather and blue boxes that you just can't seem to get rid of sometimes, I found out it's the old drive shafts. And it's because the drive shafts are like a 6-piece assembly on each end. That's a lot of pieces making noise. You know what I mean?
It
And
is.
it actually took me like 3 years to figure that out. And I was like, why, no matter what I do, no matter how much I tune, I think it's CV 52 or something like that, but it adjusts the sound of the actual DC motor inside the unit. You can adjust the pitch or whatever. The frequency that it runs on can be changed. That way you can get the hum out of the motor. And, you know, I learned that and got a lot of the hum out of the motor. And I was like, I still can't get that tick out. What is that noise? And I was actually running one on a treadmill one night without the shell on it. And I bumped the drive shaft. And when I bumped it, it got quiet. I was like, that's what it is. I'm wasting my time trying to make it run quieter with these old drive shafts that are like 6 pieces of plastic all held together with tension, you know. And that's when I got to looking into the Genesis lineup and found out why they run so quiet. It was the drive shafts that they used. So I have been rebuilding a lot of older models into Genesis.
Interesting.
As far as you know, drivetrain is.
Do people ever hire you to fix their engines?
No, I actually just finally met somebody where I live that's into model railroading too. I live, you know where Fort Bragg, North Carolina is?
I know where it is. 82nd Airborne. Ooh,
Well, my dad was 82nd Airborne also, but I stay in St. Paul's, North Carolina, about 15, 20 minutes away.
okay.
Robinson County.
I know where you are.
So if you're familiar with Fort Bragg, you're familiar with Robinson County.
I am.
Okay, well, very few people around here do model railroads. I mean, I tell people I'm into trains, and they're like the train that drives by, and I was like, no, like the trains I run on a model railroad. And they're like, oh.
What do you do for a living, out of intrigue? And what drives your passion for trains?
About 1.5 years, and my side nerve got so bad I couldn't drive trucks no more. So I come out of it, and I went back to work at my friend's cabinet shop, and we put custom cabinets. So I got more than enough access to any wood cutting device I need to get my hands on. You know,
Well, most engines aren't made out of wood. Do you have machining skills yet?
No. Oh yes, I went to school for machining and all that stuff. I was just talking about that's what I done. Like as far as enough access to them tools. I was a mechanic by the time I was 12 years old. I could take a carburetor apart and rebuild it. You know, it's just
if you were old like us, some of us, we had no choice but to do that when we were 12 and 13 years old. You know, that's when we would get that beater car for $100 and have to fix it up ourselves. And you learned a lot about that. That's interesting because this conversation is going to place. You may not be aware, one of the greatest.
Like I said, I got 4 or 5 things going at one time.
That's okay. Do you have experience putting in like the DCC and all that as well?
Oh yeah, that's the first thing I do after I rebuild one is put a decoder in.
You have a business there. So let me tell you what the number one need in this market is right now. And I'm sure other guys are going to shake their head up and down, is engine repair. There's a lot of guys with engines, and I know guys who do it that are backed up 1.5 to 2 years with customer orders.
And see, my thing is, man, if I could get my hands on some clients, that's all I need is just a few people that know, or that want it done. But like I said, around here, like I said, I just met somebody on Facebook only about 6 months ago, and he is a retired Marine, and he's a disabled Marine now and everything. But he's real big into the HO skill trains, and I finally have talked him into tearing his Bachman Easy Track up and putting down Flex Track. So
there you go. Well, let me tell you what, you have unmatched skills there of being able to do finite work, detailed work, doing electronics and that kind of repair. I would say that's your business. And let me tell you, I'm not telling you what to do, but the challenge you'll find with the big engines is twofold. One, the parts and all the equipment, all the repair stuff take a lot of space, a whole lot of space, which you may not have yet.
So I actually have access to a shop. My grandmother passed away, and it's pretty much she left my grandfather's shop. We used to have a trucking company, so I got a shop big enough to put about 4 transfer trucks inside if the weather gets bad.
Okay. Well, you might get that many HO engines. I'll tell you another market that is in need of repair is Owen 30. And Owen 30, there's a huge demand for engine repair there. And it's if you're not familiar with Owen 30, it's narrow O scale that runs on HO track.
Right.
So basically,
I've
it's
learned
the same mechanisms.
pretty much. The difference in the sizes when somebody says O, double O, T, Z, H, O, S. S got me for a while because I found out S gauge is technically runs on code 100 track by scale. And 83 is technically HO scale track, where code 100 is technically S scale track.
I didn't know that. See, I just learned that. I use whatever's cheap.
Until I was trying to figure out why my couplers kept snagging in turnouts, and then I found out you can just bend the little wire up on the Cadies, and it'll stop snagging. But up until I learned that trick, I researched heavily into why should I go with code 83 versus code 100, or what's the next one down, code 78.
Code 70.
70, yeah. So I was like, well, maybe I need to go with something like code 70, and that's when I started doing all the research, and come to find out, technically, S scale is code 100, which the gauge of the wheels are the same for S scale and HO. It's just, I think S scale is technically 1/64th. O scale is like
148. 148.
So the S scale is technically 1/64th, and that's the scale that would go perfectly with your Hot Wheels cars.
Let me ask you a question. How much time can you allocate to a business on top of the work you do at the cabinet shop each week?
Morning, noon, and night, 7 days a week. I have no children, no wife, no kids. And like I said, I'm only doing this. Right now, I'm doing childcare for a friend of mine because of all the Corona stuff. She had to take her kids out of regular school because her job doesn't allow for her to do all that stuff on the computers, have her kids at school, because she's a single mother. And like I said, I was just doing odd jobs, pretty much fixing cars and repairing homes and stuff like that. And she was like, you want something steady? She was like, $300 a week. And I was like, I can't argue with that, to watch 2 kids, and cook for them twice a day.
There you go. I have them sort HO parts for you too.
Oh, they're little too.
So this is what I suggest. I think, what I would tell you to do is don't go far away from what you already know how to do. And the HO, you seem to be gifted in that. I think you should create a Facebook page, put your name to it, and just start circulating out there by word of mouth to get people to come to you.
So in
That's
other words, just
that's all
start a
you need to do to
Facebook
get
repair
started.
page
You
for
do not
HO.
need
And
a
go
web-
from
a
there.
guy like you doesn't need a website. Until you got
Okay.
guys like Dylan and I who can help you.
Give me 1 second. Like I said, I'm looking for something. I think I left a grocery bag outside in the vehicle. Cut that off.
So why don't we switch over to somebody else while he does
Oh,
that?
please do. Please do. Go ahead. I can only talk so much in one day.
All right. Well, Kevin, you brought something up the other day.
You actually listened to me?
Yeah. What can I say? I do like to read what you put on Facebook. And I think this is, I think it's probably important to bring it up, because you mentioned when you were in Alabama, what was it, like a week and a half ago at this point?
Don't get me going on this. It's not what oh my God. Go ahead, Dylan.
Well, to be fair, if you're getting into a business, you probably need to know the difference between scale and gauge. And frankly, you get it. But hearing it explained might be a good thing to hear from some people, especially somebody who doesn't get the difference. Because it's clear that there are people who don't get it.
Right. Well, a part of it is too, is I think it's people. If we step back, you heard what it is. What do I is how many have somebody else answer? What do I do before I go to bed every night?
Read a train book.
Right. Exactly. What do I do every morning when I drink my coffee? That's when I watch my train videos. Right.
Right.
I am constantly studying and I constantly learn. It's amazing how much you have to study. Jim Kello there, Jim, you're in your mid 70s or something. You are still studying every single day. And that's what it takes to be a successful business person in a niche market. You have got to study. And if you own a business where there's competition, particularly if you're a mom and pop business, one thing you have over the big businesses, and I hear this all the time, is my willingness to slow down and spend some time with a customer. There's a saying in big business, you can't spend enough time with your customers. So they want to talk, they could talk. They want to learn, teach them. If I don't know, I don't BS them. And I say, I don't know. Let me go find out for you. So this is an example. I'm in Alabama. I'm working on a really important project at the University of Alabama. And I had some spare time, as I told you. I do trains or history in my off time when I travel, nothing else, because I can't drink. And I found a couple train related things, but they were all closed due to COVID. There was one open. So I called the store, and I learned this a long time ago, to make a practice of calling the store first so I don't waste my time. And so the conversation went as follows, and this is not dissing any brand. This is an example of not knowing your product and not knowing your craft. I said, okay, what do you have? He says, we have HO and O scale. I said, really? You have O scale? He said, absolutely. We have a full line. I said, well, tell me more about it. And he started to proceed to go into Lionel. And that's not dissing Lionel, but when somebody calls you and talks to you about O scale and you're a train business, you need to be able to know the difference between O scale and O gauge. And that's what Dylan's saying is, and that's what's killing these big companies today. What the big companies that are going away is, it's all about the numbers. It's all about sales. It's all about moving boxes. When you're in a small business, it's all about customer service. People are willing. I see it all the time on Facebook. People willing to pay you more money because of your knowledge than go online and buy. And so I'm looking here, when you want to start an HO, if you were say start an HO repair business, people will repair you for, pay you for your knowledge, to fix their favorite, maybe $400 engine, or they want to buy another engine, say, hey, I can't afford to buy the new, and I'm not beating up on Bowser, but say, I can't afford the new Bowser engine or whatever it is. And can you put a sound card or DCC in it for me? And you say, sure. Then all of a sudden, if you do it at a fair price, you do it right, it goes on and on. There's a guy who just did my dead rail. Now, I paid $440 to have my engine made dead rail, which I thought was a fair price. And I had a guy by the name of
Quick question, what's dead rail?
batteries.
Ah, okay.
That's what we call battery driven. So it's gaining in popular. Another thing for you to think of is dead rail, particularly in HO, it works. But I paid 400 and something dollars. I didn't bat an eye. And the guy I did it with, Jeff Ringel, says, oh my God, I'm booked for over a year. If I have time, I'll try to fit you in, but I can't tell you when. Can you imagine having a business like that? Yeah, maybe in the next year I can get to you. That is when I saw the demand for this engine repair. You could do very well with that.
Okay, well, pricing is one of my big issues. All right, just a standard economy decoder from Digitrax. What should I charge to hook that up with basic? Just
that
front
is a
and rear
great question, and that's where we can spend some time offline. But that's where you put on your 82nd Airborne Division hat and you start doing some recon, and you figure out what the market's charging, right? You need to talk.
Well,
So
see,
your first part,
that market is just so non-existent around here. I don't even.
but your
It'd be
market,
like throwing darts in the dark, just
yeah,
praying.
but
to hit
your
something.
market's the internet. Your market's not North Carolina. People will mail you those engines. You'll learn how to ship them back. You're going to have to learn how to do proper shipping. But
Oh, no,
if you can,
that's something I specialize in. I actually worked for the post office for a little bit.
there you go. So you know how they
You know,
abuse our
the
packages.
project, the anthrax that broke out.
Right. So
I was
what you
in
need to
that.
do is, right, that's where mapping out your business plan is. So tomorrow you won't own a company, but there are some basic steps when you start a new company. You have to look at, okay, what are my skills? Where do I feel comfortable working? And you need to learn that. You need to learn, okay, if I'm going to do decoders, well, who can I buy decoders from? And Dylan may be really good to help you with this, actually, because Dylan went through this. Dylan went through this with trying to find mechanisms for his engines, and he buys his mechanisms from Germany because he was able to get a fair price. He's able to get quality. But there are a number of players out there. So you'll find, your players out there are NEC, TSC. I'm sure there's others out there. On the battery-driven locomotives, I don't think anybody's doing that in HO that I know of, but I know people want to do it. Airwire is the big player there. So start mapping out what you think, where you feel comfortable starting, and then you start itemizing, okay, what do I need to learn and who do I need to know before you get your business going? Okay,
I got you. So it's figure out my weaknesses first and go from there.
I figure out both, right? And in the business world, there's actually a name for this. It's called SWOT. SWOT, and it's called a SWOT analysis. And SWOT stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And it's basically a piece of paper, and you put a cross across it like that: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. And you look at the whole business at a high 30,000 foot view. Okay, what is here? Your weaknesses may be business acumen. Your weakness may be access to product at a fair price, that you can buy it at a fair price, or your ability to get terms to get that product, and then your ability to turn it around and make a profit on it. It takes some momentum. That's why I said Dylan would be good, because Dylan had to go through that, and he could really mentor you in like, okay, these are the steps you do. And I walked Dylan through that. And I think Dylan would be best to teach you, because I taught Dylan. I need Dylan, sort of train the trainer. Dylan needs to take the rope here. And if Dylan gets stuck, he could come to me. But
Right.
if I see that,
Like
you're still there fixing. Go ahead, Dylan.
But Kevin was, I when I got started, I was lucky that I already knew Kevin, and maybe it's because he just. Well, I'm getting an echo from something, but maybe it's because he just kind of looked at me and went, I don't know what Kevin saw at me at the time, but he just started teaching me. I don't
Kind of
quite
like
know what was
me
in
and
his
my
head when I
buddy
first.
that I made up here in Fayetteville the other day. He got into it, and like I say, he knows Bachman Easy Track, and he had one of the little Bachman DCC controllers, and I was like, dude, you got to get rid of this if you really want to get into it.
Well, to be fair, to start out with those Bachman little DCC boxes, I have one of those, and I use those to test my locomotives.
Oh yeah,
They at
and that's
least
what I
they
thought,
may
don't
be
get rid of
simple.
it,
They're
but make
simple
a
as all
test
hell,
track.
but they work.
That's what I thought. I'd make a test track out of that.
You can use it for a test track, and it works fine.
Right.
Obviously,
But
as long as
he
it's
was
an
trying to
address that
do,
you can punch in on the controller.
he was
But
trying to do consist and program speed matching and all that, and I was like, that's not going to cut it, man.
yeah, that's not even capable of doing it. But
Right.
for just
I
making sure
think you
that the
can
decoder
program,
works
yeah,
fine.
I think you can program an address and 1 or 2 CVs with that thing, and that's it.
Yep. Believe me, I tried programming a sound locomotive with it, and I'm like, how am I can't figure this. I just couldn't get it to work. And it was one of my own ones, an engine of my own. And I'm like, how am I supposed to program this? You can't even see what you're in, and it doesn't tell you what you're in, what menu you're in. So it's like, okay, not even gonna screw that up. But Kevin really, I don't know what he saw in me at the time. Maybe he looked at me and he saw the potential. Maybe he looked at me and he took pity. I don't know. I'm not in Kevin's head.
No, you're a geek sort of like the rest of all the successful people. Most of us, again, I say that most of us are cliquish, and that works in this hobby because people do this because, well, they like machinery and they like, things that make hissing noises and raging fires or, large, loud diesel engine sounds. That's model railroading guys, we're the guys that we're driving down the road, and if our wife is in the car, we just stop the car and say, I'll be back. And you come back covered in dirt and brushes and say, you can't believe what I just saw.
Benefits of not having a wife.
So anyway, when Kevin first started teaching me, he told me to basically, basically one of the things I came away with is when you hear something, you take note of it. Whether or not you do anything with it is another thing altogether. But if you hear of, say, somebody who makes mechanisms, which is how I found the people over in Europe that I get my mechanisms from, is I just happened to come across it on Facebook. Someone was selling one of their mechanisms secondhand, and I started doing some research. And that actually panned out. The mechanisms, the quality of them, I cannot complain. Now, they are designed for trolleys and HO scale, but these guys managed to fit flywheels on them when most mechanisms of similar size, I've never seen that on. And it's like, you can't help but just kind of be a little bit mind blown there because someone put the thought in. And the price point, I looked at that and I'm like, you know what? This is worth it, especially for using for some of my own kit locomotives. Now, obviously, COVID has made shipping a pain in the butt, for lack of a better way of putting it. It's not their fault. They ship it out right away. It's once it gets to the airport, it sits there, and that's not the company's fault.
Right.
I know that because once it's out of their hands, it's whoever's shipping it.
But to go back to what I saw in you, though, is I saw passion. And I see this with you too, Jay. You've got the passion. You are absolutely, you've got it. Where you it is clear you know what you're doing. And I think you could capitalize on that. And if you partner up with Dylan, and the reason I'm dumping you off on Dylan is because I am just slammed. But I don't mind helping coming in, but I can't give you full time. But I can, between a bunch of people, I absolutely think of anybody who's come yet, you've got the business, and you could, within a month, you could be making money. I don't even hesitate.
Point
Kevin,
in the right direction.
Kevin,
Pointing in the right direction is more than enough help.
Kevin, let me ask you a question. I know Jay is concerned about not having a lot of money to spend on the front end. But it just seems to me that with his ability, if he went and got a Facebook page, which isn't going to cost him anything, he could at least put his toe in the water and see what response he gets.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's why I said it won't cost him any money, and the thing is, we won't talk finances here, but, there's a way for you to get started, and it may be simply is, fixing a broken shaft for somebody. And so a shaft doesn't cost a lot of money. You got to figure out what brands you want to work on. So, I mean, it's a matter of, you could just spend a lot of time saying, so for example, in the world in ON30, Bachman has some known issues. Okay. Bachman, ON30, notoriously known for gear issues.
The nylon.
Dylan's found there's some other issues, but that's just an issue of you being able to buy a gear, getting the first one fixed, shipping it back out, and then saving that money, and then buying two more gears and doing two more and building up a little bit of cash reserve you don't touch except to do your hobby.
Well, see,
And
now I also have a friend that runs a machine shop in Lumberton, and
I've been to
he told
Lumberton.
me, okay, well, Gunmar is the name of it, and he specializes in stuff like that. And I talked to him before. I had back when I first started, before I knew how to actually acquire any parts at all. He would cut brass gears for me.
Oh, small.
Yeah, I would take him the plastic nylon gear that was split and have him to actually cut a replica in brass.
Dude, you now have a second business because Bachman can't supply the parts. If any done, I'd get with them offline. There's a company called Precision Scale that did some of it, but like a gear costs like $25.
A plastic one?
Well, they do it in brass, but
Okay.
you do it
But
with
just me
you
being
can
able to
figure
get
out the
access
top-
to somebody that can cut brass gears is a good
if
thing.
you can figure out the top gears, you pay some to your friend, you pocket the rest. All of a sudden now you're on Facebook Marketplace saying, yeah, I've got brass gears to fix this. Find out what the top failing gears are. Dude, you've got an immediate cash flow.
Go and have them
Be a
cut me
faster
100
cash
of
flow
them and
right
be done with it.
And the hobby, I can tell you for sure, talk to Dylan about getting brass gears for Shea locomotives. You will have lots of friends.
Dylan, can you post your email on the chat so that Jay can contact you later?
I can do that.
Dylan,
Dylan,
you get
I
that? You
do
get
not
the
know how to copy your chat. So if you would do me a favor and just take my email down and directly email me, that would be great. It's JAYRABY86@gmail.com. All
Jay-
lowercase.
damn, you're young.
What was the last number again?
86. JRaby
86
86@gmail.com.
at Gmail. Alrighty, you got it.
So now you have two businesses, I see. Let me tell you what, they're both right now, Bachman, one, their gears for both the their gas mechanical and their Shea are hard to get. They're expensive. And immediately Dylan could link you up. Maybe you could partner with Dylan, and right there, you could make cash by next week. If you could get those gears going, I guarantee you you could get orders possibly by next week.
Oh, you could. You could. And the interesting thing that I've found with the Bachman engines is I was actually just doing this last night as I was working on a shave for I had to order some parts. I had to order the drive shafts for the trucks for it, but was working on it, and I took the Shea drive shaft and I put it right next to the Climax one, because I have spare parts for Climaxes all over my workbench. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, they're the same gear. Like the bevel gear that splits all the time on the Shea trucks is the same gear that they use on the Climax trucks. So I looked at that, I'm like, and that I picked up the gears I had for one of the rail buses because I had a spare rail bus here, and I'm like, it's the same damn gear.
And so right there, so there's still, I'll tell you another guy is Al Judy. Al Judy is constantly repairing Shea locomotives. You give him a better price than what Bachman charged, he'd buy all of it from you.
Oh, he would. I can believe it.
Would.
Okay, well, I
So-
definitely need to get a copy of this gear and take it to my buddy and be like, cut me 100 of them now. And
Well, you don't need to get that crazy, but you know,
well, I mean, he's told me, it actually will cost him more money to cut 10 than it would if I go ahead and cut in quantity.
oh, I'm
He's like-
getting into the Shea gear business now.
So,
Well, you know what? As long
That's
as the
like-
gears work, that's a good thing.
You
he
know
told me
what?
for the gears
I
he
wanna
cut
see,
for,
Jay,
my locomotive
get
that
with
time, he was like
Dylan.
$60, but he was like, if you would have got a whole box of these gears, he said, I could have done your whole box for 200. So I was like, $60 for one or 100 for 200, that's $2 a gear.
Oh my God,
versus
that tells you the
$60.
profit in it. Hey, Dylan,
So I mean, yeah,
Yep.
I mean,
you're
he
not
told
doing
me
no
that.
repair right now. You're in the parts replacement business. Because for those that don't know, Bachman, I don't hide my loathing of that company. And anybody we could help, come to the 0-30 world. Those guys pay for that. And there's guys who will send you their engines and then you could repair them with your gears. Dylan can help
And
you
make
on.
even better profit margin off of a $2 part.
Never tell anybody what your cost is. They'll stay
Well,
here.
That's rule 0. But yeah,
This was also
And I will, and I have before. Dylan gets mad at me when I tell him you're not charging enough. We can help you with pricing. We can get you a fair price, and I think if you did those gears, you'd be really popular.
Kevin, I know you're busy and you got your hands full, but Dylan, why don't you give Kevin's email too? And maybe Kevin, every once in a while, you could.
No, I'll
See.
do it to Dylan. I'll do Dylan because he's got the same business model as Dylan. And so Dylan can show him the Facebook and his website. And I think it'd be good for Dylan to learn how to do this because we need more people doing what I'm doing. I can poke in and help. Let Dylan take the lead on this.
That's fine.
I've got no problem with that.
So Jay,
I want to come back here in a year and see that this gear business took off. You went, oh my God, I can't believe this.
So Jay, I want you to let me know what the name of your new company is when you get successful, so you can become one of the vendors on my virtual train shows.
in my head.
Yeah, what is it?
Fix my hoe. Ho, fix my hoe.
Yeah, that might not go over. I think it's an outstanding name, but I think most wives wouldn't appreciate that if they saw the envelope come in. So, think of
one thing I did learn from there he is. One thing I did learn from business, you got to have a name that catches them. And Bruno, get in the house. Come on. Got loose animals outside. I'm on the porch. The family made it home. That's what I was told. You got to have a catchy name. They got the.
Well, I don't buy that. There are so few players in there. If you're doing it, people will find, but think long-term. Don't think, who would know? So I started out, my company is Narrow Gauge Modeling Company. I had to change my name. People don't know this. I'm really NGMC now.
Okay.
Because what happened was I started doing so many things within the scale, but there are many gauges within the scale. And I probably sell now more to O scale guys than to narrow gauge guys. And I sell more paint to HO guys than I do to O scale guys. So I just sort of go by NGMC. Think of longer term, just you don't need to have a name tonight. Think through it, I wouldn't tie yourself down to a region, but you could come up with a creative name based on something you like to do or some historic landmark or something. Your name isn't so bad either. Dylan used his last name and it happened to work. The Lambert Locomotive Works has worked well for him. Maybe there's a name within your family you can use that would,
And it's actually funny. I'm actually kin to a few Lamberts in my area, but I doubt Dylan's kin to these very same Lamberts.
Oh, Dylan has no idea what his family roots are. He's
Oh,
lucky.
Well,
He's lucky he knows who his parents are.
he might
So-
be one of the Indians from this region.
oh, Kevin.
Oh.
I
I'm
don't.
still the same miserable
Now
person.
that I see you look directly at the camera, Dylan, you do kind of look like the Lamberts from this area. So
I wouldn't be surprised. There was a preservation project I worked on that didn't work out, and it turns out I was distantly related to the other Lambert on the project, because it turns out we had a common ancestor that went back to Martha's Vineyard. I'm like, oh, what are the odds of that? It was around the time my brother was my younger brother was doing the family tree research, and I'm like, I mentioned the name. The guy had owned a general store on Martha's Vineyard, and his father was a ferry captain or something. He goes, and then the guy pulls out his family tree. It's same name on the family tree, same guy, same birth date, and everything. I'm like, okay, odds of that are pretty nil and slim.
right.
That's how the world is. I wanted Chinook.
The Navy actually named I think it was a destroyer after my great uncle after sometime around World War II. But you can look it up. It was the USS Raby, and he was a rear admiral in the Navy, and they named a destroyer after him.
Well, to be fair, the U.S. Navy did have a lot of ships they were trying to pump out. You can't exactly just throw a hull number on it.
Oh, exactly. So I mean,
and plenty of people were going out and
a
doing
family name on the side of a ship. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, but there were plenty. You look back at the Navy. Once they started having to build ships, by that point, they had people going out and doing, frankly, some fairly heroic things. So it's not like they had any shortage of people that they could say, "Hey, we're naming a ship after you." It's not like they had any shortage of that. You know what I mean? Like, I can't remember the guy's name off the top of my head. He commanded a destroyer escort off of Samar. When the Japanese, at the Battle of Samar, he commanded a destroyer escort. And the guy, he went down with the ship. Or maybe I'm thinking one of the destroyers, but what they did was so... you have a fleet of battleships, heavy cruisers, destroyers.
Dylan.
Yeah, I'm getting off track.
You dive into the bottom of the pool there, buddy. So let's do this. Is there anybody else who has a business idea on the call?
One thing, gentlemen. Family's getting a little out of hand here, and it's dinner time. And
hey, you know where we're at. Family first.
Dylan's email address. Dylan, feel free to share that with anybody that wants it. That wants to get up with me about anything.
You got it.
I'll be in touch with you here in probably about an hour. I'll send you my actual phone number. Okay.
You got it.
Bless you, man.
Guys,
family is always first.
But yeah, let me get off of here. Thanks, guys.
No, great.
So Kevin and Dylan, this is Fran Foley.
Hey, Mr. Foley, how are you doing, sir?
Good. We spoke a few times.
Is that snow on your hat?
No, it's probably my daughter's hat with glitter on it. Yeah. No,
It's a good look for you.
Yeah. Better than this, huh? Anyway, before I start, I should say if there's anyone on the call who wants to talk about starting the business from scratch, speak up now, because I'm going to go just a little different angle. I've had a small business for a year or two now. So if anybody wants to is talking about from the get-go, speak up.
Yeah, I think that would be me. Right now I'm still trying to figure out how to use the 3D software so I can get things 3D printed. So I'm still in the research phase and all that, but eventually, once everything starts.
I stumbled on it recently. There's a 3D modeling page on Facebook. Have you become a member of that?
3D printing and model railroading, yes.
That might be it. Let me tell you, that page is phenomenal. Those guys there can get you through those difficult issues quickly. And I've chosen to totally ignore it. Not a skill I want to learn. But you know, Dylan, of course, is a good one to talk to. And there's Fran Foley. You're doing 3D printing, I believe. That's what you do. It's where the hobby's going. You know, think and I'm going to give you the best advice ever. No pay attention. Once people know you have those skills, they want to waste your time, and you're not a free engineering service. Don't do it. What I like about what Fran did, and I don't want to take the out of France. Fran found a niche, and Fran sort of sticks within that niche. He's done some great things. Matter of fact, Fran, look what's sitting on my desk. Look what came in my desk today, Fran. They look familiar?
Oh, cool. All right.
Yeah,
Kevin,
I bribed.
Kevin, before you change the subject, let me, you made a statement here. No pay, no something. What did you say?
No pay attention.
Now, could you elaborate on that, what you mean by that as far as
Right.
starting a new business?
Yeah, well, it's very important. And Ed, maybe I think you and I spoke after the last call, did we not?
I think so. Yeah, you were the
We
one.
did. By the way, I like that engine behind you a great deal. That's most cool. I wish that existed. No pay means your time is valuable. And when you get into, it was interesting. If you listen to the last call, that guy's got a freaking, did you hear? I just kept asking questions. It's called the 5, this is in business. It's called the 5 whys. You guys didn't recognize, but I kept asking sort of why? And we got to his business. He doesn't realize, not the HO repair. He could go into if he made those little gears, there's a freaking huge market. I think like Northwest Short Line charges like $20-something a gear. Dylan, is that correct?
The gears are up there for a package of gears. Yeah, they're expensive.
It's
right
like
around there.
$20 for a package of gears. And like right now, I want to say one more while it's in my head. The Shea locomotives out of the box, 50% chance the gears will fail. Right now, Al Judy says that the little Davenport, it's the gas mechanical, side rod gas mechanical, 75% failure rate right now out of the box new. That's all. Think of the market there. And he said, I know how to do gears. I'm like, yeah, that's your business. What Fran did the same thing. Fran, and this is, you know, I'm writing an article right now. Jim, I'm doing this for Dan Doughty. In search of Alan, the great HO modeler, John Allen. And what he said was, whatever you do, and Ed, this is right to you, okay? Consistency. Whatever is your style, and that doesn't matter just modeling, that's your business, whatever your niche is, your model is, stick with it. Everybody in the world's going to be pulling you. Once you figure out you can do 3D, I had to beat Dylan. I broke 3 sticks on Dylan's head.
You did.
I did. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. People will ask you all types of things and send you down these rat holes doing work and projects for them. If they don't pay for it, no pay attention. Get your focus so damn tight, and you're going to be tempted to get out of that. That's part of your business plan. You know your mission statement. If you go to my website and you go down and you look at my mission statement, I have never freaking veered from that. And that's what you become known for. Fran Foley, these freaking cars. I got these from Jack's store, and I traded for them. And these are actually Fran's cars right here. And that's why I was joking. They came in the mail and I traded for them for my new mine. And he has this set of shorty vehicles. They're phenomenal. They're simply fantastic. Actually, I don't think they're expensive enough, but that's another conversation. But Fran found his niche, and he's a great one. Actually, Ed, you would be good to pair up with Fran, because that would be closer to your business model, and Dylan could give you some of the technical backing there. I think those two you're well fit in, and they'll get you. But if you're going to get asked by everybody to do stuff, if it's outside of your scope, do not do it.
Yeah,
or I will
absolutely.
make Dylan take one of those broken sticks and beat you with it as well.
Yeah, we'll break the stick from halves and the quarters, and we'll just keep going down the line.
Hey, Fran, let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Why would you be interested maybe in talking to Ed, privately?
Oh, sure, anytime. Yeah,
Could you maybe put your email on the
Yeah.
chat to Ed?
yeah, I'll do that.
Yeah, I was just about to ask, what's Fran's contact information?
Yeah,
It'd be-
so this is interesting. This is how most of us, the old timers here, know Jim, because he was doing mentorship. You need a mentor. I physically can't be everybody's mentor. I'm great with ideas just because I ran, 27 companies, the product lines, what were companies. And this is a lot of stuff. And you learn how to get organized very quickly, but you quickly see how to formulate your business, and you see opportunities. And I'm glad you came back here today with your ideas. So that means it's in your head, and that's a good thing, because now you're passionate. So if you come back twice, it means you're passionate, you're serious, you're formulating that, and you got to figure out what you want to do. Have you figured out what you want to do yet?
Actually, my thought process was actually to have like two companies. The first one to sort of learn on how to run a company, so I have more success with the second one. The first one is basically, I think I told this last time, is sort of like remember the Oscar and Piker that Walters used to have? The little short, let's see if I can find it. Of course.
Yeah,
now
I
that
remember you bringing them up. You wanted to try and make little short pipe cars like that.
Yeah, it's like, whereas the Oscar and Piker were business cars, basically finish out the set, And
Interesting. So, Fran does that too. Fran, why don't you tell them a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, I think the thing that keeps me going and got me started, really, was being inquisitive about the 3D printing process, and knowing that myself have figured my layout space will be really small. I'm in a module group, but my home layout space is really small, and I would like to do switching. So if you have 4 or 6 foot of O scale, it's going to be hard to do some switching. So I focused on the shorty cars. There's something I wanted for myself. In fact, every kit that I sell, I have at least 15, 16 kits. Every kit starts as something I want for myself. That keeps the motivation in developing the thing, because the development, I may be, 80 hours work developing something, going through different prototypes and until I can really, put a price on it. But what I was gonna, when I kind of interrupted, what I was gonna go towards was I started very cautiously, and I'm really glad I did, because I felt that magnetic pull of, oh, this guy would like something weird, and I can design that out 20, 30 hours and work it up and sell them one off. And I resisted that. And I bake only what I want for myself on my layout.
What's the name of your company, Fran?
Foley Car Works. Because I started making just freight cars. I'm doing locomotives now too. So on Facebook, it's Foley Car and Locomotive Companies, but I didn't want to parallel Dylan too much with Foley Locomotive Works, because Dylan actually, Dylan and Kevin both gave me bits and pieces of advice as I was starting. Maybe they didn't know I was going to be a business, and maybe I didn't.
Well, I
Oh,
look,
yes, I did. I knew it
we
was
both
coming.
we both kind of figured it was coming. And the
Yeah.
reason I gave you the advice, Fran, is because I knew where I went wrong. But at the same time, like when you sent me those cars that I had at Harrisburg a couple years ago, what I noticed is for all that time you put into it, the cars, you don't have to screw with it. It's put it together, paint it, and there's really no pitfalls to the cars you've done. Nothing that I could see anyway that stood out as obvious because you did the homework and you made a good product. I can't say you didn't.
Your product is not good. It's outstanding. You will be a world-class leader if you choose to be in the stubby market. And because Bachman is an utter failure, in my honest opinion. Oops, there I go again. I'm not supposed to say that.
Yeah. Well,
it's my personal opinion.
If the thing that has really kept me in it was not burning out. I'm retired. I'm also a disabled vet, and I don't really want a full-time job, although this little bit that I'm doing is full-time, but it's a full-time hobby. And so I don't want a website, and I don't want too much business. So I limit the advertising. Once in a while, I'll put one or two things up on Facebook. Recently, though, George, I'll think of his name in a minute. He bought my old time, my early Plymouth model, and I didn't know who he was. He ordered it, he bought it, and the next thing I know, it's in the Gazette. And
love how that happens.
Yeah,
outstanding.
He does reviews for the Gazette. So so it's not a model that everyone wants. I've sold very few. I mean, you guys, it's the first Plymouth locomotive, and I mean, whose layout does this fit on? You know, unless you got a brickyard from 1912 or something. So I might have sold 10 or 12 of these, which is fine with me. That's a nice speed where, you know, and I was also lucky enough to work on this with Tom York did a drawing, sent me a drawing.
Oh, interesting.
Asked me how close I could get to it. So that was really a great opportunity. I was blown away. Been looking at Tom York stuff for 30 years, and he contacts me. So, but again, the burnout thing for me is major, because if I burn out, I'm out of here. I'll go pick up a guitar and won't be back for 3 months. So I do what I want, and I control the volume. Younger guys that really want to take this up as a longer term business, they're going to look closer at profit and at production than I do. I actually do all my printing myself, and it's tough. It's tough, especially on filament printers. You really have to design from the very start to get a product, to get pieces that have an acceptable surface.
Do you ever think of, Fran, do you ever just think of shopping it out and just sticking to the simpler marketing and sales side and just taking it easier?
That was something that I was gonna bring up. That's where I was going. And I will have to, asking the 5 whys, I think I would have to, or the 5 questions, I would have to, where I'm short now is on researching companies that could do it and still make a penny from it. Because right now, Shapeways and Sculptio would charge me a little bit more than what I'm getting for the models that I'm printing. So the price would have to double, and I'm not sure I want to go there. Like this kit was was $80 for the plastic. It uses a Northwest short line drive. And these little kits here actually use Dylan's low profile drive. And these were $60. For what I would charge is $60 for the kit. It's about 30 some pieces. And I've been told it's a fun build. And I think so. But for Shapeways to print this, I want $60. Shapeways wants about $75 to print it, and Sculptio about the same, maybe a little less for Sculptio. So I mean, I could have them and put them out there and see if they move. But I have doubts. One thing to think of if you're going down this road is your own conception and perception of what some of this stuff is worth is not necessarily accurate. One of the reasons that I very first started exploring is I thought the Bachmann was too expensive on some of their stuff. So I said, well, I can print that, I mean, that could be a Davenport, but it's really another Plymouth. I thought it was too expensive. So my mindset was in a lower, and it still is in a way, it's in a lower gear. Because if I think of, printing something at Shapeways that costs $60 to print it, and I have to charge, maybe $100 between the design work and the handling, and on all the miscellaneouses of business, the unforeseen returns and the lost in shippings, it'd be $100. And I in my mind, it's like an automatic no-go. I won't get that much for it. So I maybe will have to work around that, see just how accurate that is. How accurate my own assessment of what I'm doing, and so I don't know the market well. I made a Facebook page, and some people like it. A lot of people like the stuff, and some people order the stuff.
There's a great lesson here, Ed, and that is in terms of business, scale business, I have over 2,000 SKUs in my business, and it's going to be increasing here by 100 next month. And I wanted it to go there because I have one thing that maybe others don't hear. I have a son who's interested in taking the business over. So if I create a multi-million-dollar business here, which I see is foreseeable, I have somebody who will take it over, right? So it interests me. I mean, this is not just for me. But what Fran is doing here, Fran decided, okay, this is how big I want my company. And I hear this, some guys get burned out. There's a number of guys right now who are scaling back. A good example, you wouldn't mind me saying that, would be Jeff Grove of Carolina Craftsman Kits. He sold off his O-scale portion of his business to another guy who wanted to start a business. He doesn't want to do anymore. He's in his 70s. He's saying, I want to enjoy life a little bit more. And that's very important, to define where you want to be and not get these grandiose things if you're not ready for it. So if you, for example, what you're doing there, you very well might find you do a series of cars, of 10 cars, and go, I'm not going to do any more than this for a while, and just do what Fran is doing and see how it plays out. And if you have more time, saying, okay, I see a light down where I can maybe make even more money and I'm willing to take it up another level. That's part of your business plan. I think but that's part of, Fran's age, it's the maturity and it's the wisdom. He knows better. He knows he doesn't, it's a quasi, Fran's what we call a hobby business, meaning he does the business as a hobby. He does it for fun. He does it for other reasons. But he has no desire to create this, global enterprise like Dylan and I do. We do. we're looking, Dylan and I joke about world domination, but we're looking at it for another reason. We're trying to save the hobby for future generations. That's my business objective. And I think that's really, really good advice that Fran is giving you here is, how big do you want this to be? How much time do you want to eat up? Because if you are good and you do well, like Fran, I saw those cars. I fought to get those cars. I don't know if I could get 8 of those cars from Fran right now. But I saw them, they're weathered. I jumped on them. But, you know, that's part of outlining your business. How much time do you want to spend? I work on narrow gauge modeling 7 days a week, but I love it. I'm not tired of it at all. I come to work and I love what I'm freaking doing, you know. And you heard what he says. If I don't like this, I'm going to go play guitar. He knows where that threshold is of where I say, okay, I need a break. So, you know, that's what we call in normal life is life work balance, right? I don't know if you've ever heard that expression. I'm very gifted. I have a son. I have a wife. I don't know your marital situation. Anybody's here. But I've got a trained wife and she encourages me to do this. So that's another factor. You know, will the business impact? I don't know what you do for a day job, Ed, but when you add another job, you know, will it impact your ability with your family or friends, or, you know, you got to weigh that in as well. Because I'm telling you what, everybody who starts a business, and Fran's probably seeing this and going, Fran, if he was 20 years younger, might look at this different than he is now. But Fran is seeing it. You see the demand. It's insane, isn't it? You could just go and go and go and go as big as you wanted to. I mean, Dylan sees it. And it's because nobody's in the business. The business is wide open. I mean, it's there for the taking.
I think you guys hit the nail right on the head with the work-life balance thing. Like, now Kevin knows it and Jim knows it, but for those of you who don't know it, and for the sake of saying it for the umpteenth time, my day job, I helped run the office at Al's Oil, which my grandfather and my father 26 years ago, or maybe 27 at this point, I can't quite remember. I was born like 6 months after they started it. Basically what I do is I help run the office there. So I also answer the phones at night. Now, Kevin has said this to me once before. Why don't you take a night off once in a while? It's tricky because, you know, it's not just, I'm trying to think of how do I say this. It's not just Lambert Locomotive Works like that. I find Lambert Locomotive Works easy. It is, my customers are great. The one problem I ever had with a customer, it was just like, hey, you sent it to the wrong place. It was solved in 5 minutes. Problem solved, wasn't a big deal. And he was just like, okay, not a big deal. Because the wrong address had showed up on his PayPal. And then the wrong email was on his PayPal too. So he wasn't looking at the email I was sending the emails to. And once we straightened that out, he's like, that's my fault. And we were fine. But one of the things you also got to consider, and Fran covers this good, I can't stress burnout enough. I can't. I don't get burnout from LLW. LLW rejuvenates me because I have something I can come home to that not only do people look at me as, you know, somebody who cares about the hobby, but I'll have people who just come to me and just ask me for their thoughts at this point. Like, hey, how do you think I can make this work? And I can throw some ideas out based on my experience. You know, obviously, I'm not going to say I'm a genius. I'm not. I am one man. And there's no way in hell I'm ever going to be able to know everything. There are probably people out there who have forgotten more than I'll ever know. But to have people that come to me for my advice, to have people who ask me, hey, how do you think I can make this? Or how do you think I can make this work? Or, hey, I was looking at one of your kits and I want to try taking a narrow gauge diesel and making a standard gauge one with it. You know, stuff like that. I can't help but sit here and go, I'm doing the right thing. Because it's not just, you know, making money is one thing. If you don't enjoy what you do, you are going to get burnt out. Period. End of discussion. You will. don't get me wrong. Where I work at Al's, I really enjoy it because, for the most part, people are great. But I get burnt out there because it is heavy duty stuff, and I can't help but feel like there's at times where it feels like in that environment that feels like the weight of the world is on your shoulders.
Dylan deals with a lot of stupid people where he works. Let me help you out, Dylan.
The case in point is we just had a guy blow his boiler up, but yeah.
Outstanding.
Yeah.
Kevin, let me ask you this.
Yes, sir.
So many people in the hobby I hear say, if you want to make $1 million in the model railroad business, start with 2 million. You'll never make money in this business. Don't try to start a model railroad business. There's no future in it. You're wasting your time. Whatever money you're going to spend, you're going to lose. So why should anybody care about losing?
Well, because here's the thing is, and I know I discussed this I mentioned distribution. Distribution continues to be what's hurting the hobby. I think if distributors went out of business, would be the best thing for the model railroad hobby. So let me explain this, and I'm going to do it. People don't understand. There's two different worlds. So if you were a train store, the way you would get your inventory is you would pick one or more distributors who would inventory a large amount of product that would then feed, dozens, if not 100 hobby stores. Okay. They did all the management for the manufacturer. The manufacturer would give them incredible discounts, say 50% off. You often hear this 40% discount, which is a mistake. That's all part of the past, but they would give maybe the distributor 50% off. And then the distributor would then give the store 30 to 40% off. And you say, well, that's not much. You're making 10 to 15 points. It is a lot if you're moving a lot of boxes, right? Volume trumps price in that case. So what happened was people could not get past how the distribution model worked. And then the distribution model started in the early 2000s, where the distributors started selling directly to the customers, or they started giving online stores certain pricing. And so the people who had been in the business a long time failed to change their strategy, and they were losing money. They were taping dollar bills because they had overhead that other people didn't, but they never owned their product. So that's something, for you, Ed, one of the things, and Fran, you guys will own your own product. You don't have to buy resell like me. I do a lot of buy resell. I do own my own product. Don't get me wrong. And I'm headed more and more of that. But the thing is that these guys didn't own their product. They went to distributors who gave them terms, borrow. It's like a credit card, a revolving account. And that is very true. The only way to make money was to have a lot of money, and then you go down this failed business strategy. First thing I came in was I looked at the business model, and I knew immediately it was broken. I knew it was not sustainable. I knew, we call it the channel. The channel is how and where you distribute your products at what discounts, and you manage the channel. And they did it. So anybody coming in now, like a Fran or an Ed or Raby, you will own your own product. So that's how you make your own money. You own the intellectual property. You own the manufacturing. You own the inventory. You control what it is. You control who you sell it to. You have a direct relationship with the customer. I don't suggest wholesaling your products. You don't want to hear that from me because I ask people to wholesale. But specialty products don't do well to the wholesale because you can't get the numbers. You can't get the volume. It doesn't work. And a lot of people didn't figure that out. And that's why, Jim, is because the channel is screwed up. So ignore distribution, partner with only good people that will help build or grow your business, and ignore everybody else. There are a lot of dumbasses out there that do a whole lot of talking on these Facebook pages, and you see it. And Al, Judy, and I laugh about it all the time. It's like, you guys giving advice. And it's like, we both know you don't even have a layout. You know, these are people who parrot this. Do not listen to people. So Ed, when you start your business, you know, Fran went slow, very important, but you need to start immediately talking. Will people actually buy this? That's the, you know, no pay attention. You know, is there a market for it? Get on the forums and start asking people. And somebody say, yes, does anybody, whatever the name of that engine is or car, does anybody own one of these? Okay. And you start taking names, emails, and going down to, hey, can I talk to you offline? And then you say, okay, you know, would you buy more of these? You think it's a good idea. Your idea might suck. You know, what you might find out, say, I don't, but I am thinking about this. You're looking for patterns. That's why I kept telling Dylan, talk to people, talk, ask questions. But people who give you generalized advice, ignore them. They're idiots. You know, here I am. I mean, I'm rolling up. I've rolled up $200 of paint during this call, you know, that I'll ship out in the morning. It's incredible. You know, on the paint, this paint here, I'm guessing I probably made 50, 60% profit. So I made $100 while sitting on this call, talking to you. That's pretty sweet.
Yeah.
So I'm going to get off and do more paint. So
Because paint is like a thing for you now.
yeah, I do like the fumes, admittedly. You know, I broke two bottles of Flowquill on the floor, and I got a little bit excited. I tell you what, that shit smells good. I don't know. People saying it's so bad, and I don't know. Maybe it was just my Navy days. I actually think Flowquill smells good, but I don't know. I'm strange. But Ed, you
Yeah.
got to get that down. You know what made you want to do these cars? What made you think it was a good idea?
Well, the thing is that I bought the Oscar and Piker, and I belong to the Catskill Adirondack and Berkshire Model Train Club.
Really?
And I would turn around and you know, we put them on the train and all that, and of course a lot of people recognize them and all that. But it was sort of kind of like, gee, I wonder if it would look like, you know, a complete set. And
So how many of them do you have?
currently right now, because
I guess.
I would say 3.
Okay.
And basically I took Athearn cars, chopped them up and all that. I haven't really.
Oh, I got it. And when you ran these at the club, what did people say?
You know, they would sort of chuckle and all that, and then sort of kind of move on and all that. But a lot of people were sort of kind of noticing the cars, because one of our members actually turned around and they did like a complete accurate model of the South Glens Falls train local. And we had a show in South Glens Falls. And apparently they even the guys that were on the crew showed up. Nobody noticed that it was the local and all that, because, well, it's just another train. It's, you know, the most popular things we had were the small little gantry dancer, you know, with the 2 guys running and
What's
all
the name of that engine again?
It was the
Or I
Oscar
mean the car. Oscar and Pike.
Piker.
Yes. And who made it?
Walthers. They there's 2 different versions. One was the original version, which was
It popped up. I got it here. 21 foot. You know, that's sort of cool, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's sort of interesting. So it's not.
You've never built one of those?
No, we call them stubbies in 0 and 30 world.
Oh, they're great. They're great. They're business cars.
Yeah, they're small little business cars. Here's one of them.
Was it ever prototypical?
No, not even close. Not even close to prototypical.
Yeah, it was part of Walther's tongue-in-cheek line. They had like the presidential peanut car for the original one, so it shows you how far back when they first made them. And
that was way back, a long time ago.
Yeah, the original ones were actual crafting kits. You know, it's basically, all right, here's some parts and put it together.
Yeah.
This This one is the later one. I forgot what year it was. I want to say early 2000s, but this was ready to run. So it's one of those things of my idea was to make the my cars similar to what the originals were, where there were actual craftsman's kits, so people can practice on how to put a craftsman kit car together, and then they can turn around and decorate it and etc. and all that.
What, these things I'm watching, they've actually, some have sold for over $100, $75. Couple times they get one car goes for there. I saw a Pennsylvania Oscar and Piker going for 40. So you might want to look at your pricing there. The reason I say that is if the market bears $40, it's going to be hard to make profit in that 3D printing.
Mm-hmm.
But
you may need to look at other ways of producing it. You can make a 3D printed master and probably reduce cost by having it resin cast.
And the reason you got to find out is, so I've got a great story, and
yeah, but wait a minute. He wants to produce them like the old Craftsman kits. The old Craftsman kits were wood.
Well, listen to me here, but it's in economics, it's still a substitute product, right? So one of the things I remember there's a guy, Don Brower, and this was at the company I worked with. This was unusual at the time. Don was 72. So he's got to be long dead. And this would have been, what year would have this been? 1997. I'd say it was right in the mid 90s. Anyhow, I had a great idea for a product. And when Don said, come on into my office and tell me about it. And I did, and I'm going on and I'm all enthusiastic. He says, Kevin, that's a great idea. It failed the first 4 times we tried it, but maybe you can make it work. And I'm like, oh, and but I matured. If I was to ask, why did it fail? You need to find out why Walters killed it. I don't know how you're going to get that answer, but you need to find out, did it just end because they couldn't sell thousands of them? Or did it fail because people hated it? Okay, there could be a wide array. Again, it's also Walters, so you just don't know what they did or whose idea. It could have been a pet project. A lot with an ON30 is a pet project. So you got to look at that. You also, and the way I found out that pricing is I went on eBay, and some sets have sold for 125, but you need to find your audience, say, how many people are out there willing to pay 40 or 125? If it's closer to 40, you'll never make your money. You will bust your ass trying to get your costs down that far to be able to sell something for 40. You got to figure out then what your product costs are, your time and all that. I would tell you right now, of course, I am biased in the ON30 world. There's a huge demand for stubby vehicles in general within ON30. Within general, huge demand. And there's a demand for short passenger cars like that. A lot of guys will take the bigger Bachmann cars and then push them down. That's close to what you want to do. Maybe it's not your dream, but I'm just sharing. There is demand there because I see it all the time. And I've tried doing it and it's not fun. It's not, I tell you what, trying to get that, the roof with the Pullman car roof with the transom, get it all lined up and getting the lights. And then if you want to narrow it and you have to take out, a 1/4-inch wedge and squeeze it. Oh my God, I'll never do that crap again. But, then you got guys like Fran Foley say, hey, this looks fun. But that's an idea when there's already been that product there and it's failed. If I said the word Edsel right now, you go, there's probably is money to make in Edsel now. But at the time, if you
Edsel, you mean like the Ford Edsel?
Yeah. Well, there's big money in it now, particularly the repair parts, because it's such a strange car, But if you said that 5 years after they shut Edsel down, they would send the white van for you. But that's part of understanding your market. right? You're really going to have to understand that is a niche within a niche. You know, so I'm looking here, there are actually surprisingly quite a few of these things that have sold in eBay this quarter. Enough that, you know, the ones that we got Union Pacific, there's some silver one, Union Pacific. Can't tell what brand. One is silver. It sort of looks like Amtrak. It is. Right now, you could tell the ones that are selling Union Pacific and Amtrak just by going to under the sold. I don't know who'd want Amtrak, but maybe the Union Pacific sort of becomes sort of a fun thing, or maybe you do like 3 road names. You pick 3 road names and you stick to that, unless maybe somebody wants to commission you for more. You got to find out why people would still be buying that. It's a very interesting car.
So Bernard did actually post this in the chat, and I just missed it until now. Sorry, Bernard. Feel free to hit me later. So he posted this in the chat, and you know, Kevin? What do you think the biggest pitfalls are for somebody who's just getting into this, for a new manufacturer?
Well, I would say time and money. And time in the sense that you're going to have to run your business and be very patient and assume you're not going to make 1 penny for the first year. And I say that is you may actually make money, you might get cash flow, but there are things you're going to have to invest in. You're going to have to invest not only in product, but you're going to have to invest in relationships. And you're going to have to work pretty hard to get your name out there so people begin recognizing your name. Now, fortunately, today with Facebook, you can get known pretty quickly. And I bet you, like with Robbie there, if he came out with those gears, I bet you his name would be known pretty damn quickly. Say, hey, I'm new to this, I'm coming gears, and he'd immediately get customers. But it's the patience knowing that you're not going to get a return on your investment for a year, at least a year. You know, people are surprised. I've never taken, because of my livelihood, right? What I do, I've never taken $1 out of narrow gauge. And, you know, I buy a lot, but what I've amassed is I probably have $150,000 to $200,000 of inventory that I own. That's a lot. I don't owe anybody a thing, and every dollar I have goes into the bank to buy the next company. I bought my current company cash. So, you know, that's again part of your business strategy. If you have plans to be a Fran Foley business, well, you'll probably ramp up a lot quicker. And then you'll hit that plateau, and then you can focus on what you want to do, and you're happy with that. You know, Ed might be a different thing going, hey, you know, I want to just do this to have some fun. You know, I want to come out with this. I don't know what your money expectations are. You might make money. I mean, I was surprised for 2 HO cars to see them go for $125. You know, that's somewhat amazing. I know you want it as a craftsman kit, but I'll tell you, in the HO world, HO craftsman kits don't sell well. We all know that. You know, people, particularly HO guys, are lazy. Oh, in 30 world though, they like craftsman kits. You know, it's a different market, particularly if you make it easy. You know, sort of they don't like to do their window trim, but if you sort of made it like a Athearn blue box, you know, here's a few parts, have at it. They're willing to do that. So be careful. What the person in question, Dylan, what business were they thinking about?
Well, Bernard owns Mini Prints.
Oh,
he'd be the best person to say it because, you know.
Oh, that
right
I
here.
didn't put those two together. So
Yeah,
people
yeah.
already, hey man, people already know you by your little animals. I think it's little animals you do, right?
That's right. Little animals, and I'm moving into figures, human figures.
There's a market. Are you're up in Canada?
That's right. Yeah.
Eh?
Yes.
Eh?
Covered in snow right now.
God bless you, my son. Better you than me. What part of Canada are you in?
Toronto.
Really?
Yeah,
You know,
over-
it blew my
over the
mind
last
one time. I went to Toronto. I built the data center for the Rogers Center.
Oh, yeah.
And
Nice.
also, I've also built the data center for RBC, which is next to Rogers Center. I love going to see the Blue Jays there because you could get into the stadium for like $10, but the beer costs you $10 a piece. This is back in the day.
Yeah, but it was real beer. It wasn't that U.S. shit that you guys drink.
Yeah, you took a couple.
Wow, those are fighting words. Ladies and gentlemen, here's a battle of the McKenzie brothers here. So yeah, you guys can't screw with me. I'm tough. Yeah, but you guys drink like horses up there. I've never seen anything like it.
Well, you should try the Australians.
You know what? Let me tell you what. I had the pleasure back in the day. I was in so many nasty places, but my charming personality got myself on a Canadian ship, and they were allowed beer. And I could tell you, I walked the plank trying to get off that damn ship. I think I struggled to find my own ship back. But this guy here, this is really interesting because you went the step further and you really started putting, scale figures. Some people can afford them, some can't. There's a way to use them judiciously in key scenes, that are close up. The farther back you go, the worse your eyes are, all of us. And there's ways to play on that. But so there's an example. I've never met you. I've never bought your products, but I was aware of what you were doing, having sort of this scale stuff. The typical stuff I sell is good enough. And that's the market I chose to go after, the good enough in the figures. And, that's where I'll stay, but there is a market there. You've done well, haven't you?
Yeah, no, it's going very well. I've done started 9 months ago and I've done about 500 orders.
That's incredible. Now, what scales are you doing?
Pretty much everything. I started off with HO and then I started to get requests. The S scale guys really,
I bet.
in my experience, the S scale guys really don't get a lot of love. So when you come out with something for them, they're so thankful and very loyal. So
yeah.
So I went from HO to S. And then of course the O scale guys found me. So now I'm starting to print really large things. And then of course the N scale guys said, well, we want everything the O scale, S scale, and HO scale guys are getting. So I had to figure out how to take everything from really big to really, really, really small. So this, believe it or not, I don't know if you can see it, but this is an N scale figure.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Where do they get figures now? From like somebody in Germany, or is that where something like that would come from?
I have no idea, but I mean, it's funny because I really haven't focused on what others are doing. My vision for the company, it's interesting that you were talking about vision, because my vision was to take the craftsman quality kit ethos and apply it to figures and animals. And I didn't think that anyone was really coming out with what I would call craftsman quality in the figures. And I happen to like, I like funny things and strange things. So, I'll throw a plague doctor on my layout because it's 2020. I'll have a dog pooping in a corner because I think those are the things that sort of, people look at and, you don't call them out, but, when people see that on your layout, it's fun, right? And it's a hobby.
Right.
I'm not too precious about it. So, I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm a prototype modeler and I take, I like to model realistically, but you can have a little fun at the same time.
Are you retired? Is this full or part-time for you?
No, it's interesting. I mean, I lost my job due to COVID. So when I had a business that died when the COVID hit, and I really wanted to do absolutely everything I could to avoid having to go out and look for a job. So I really didn't want to go and sort of start knocking on doors. So the whole thing really started by accident. I mean, I was 3D printing things for myself that people seem to want to get. So
it's interesting, particularly when you're doing what you're doing is you start getting into N and that scale, you realize you then become attractive to an architect who's doing architectural models and stuff. That's
Yeah.
where I would see that, most of that stuff's pretty shitty that the architect, but sometimes they're okay with that. They sort of have these unique figures sitting there. The 0 and 30 guys have played more, as you've probably seen, with figures. And it's tough because you've got to make a living at it. And then there's a great guy, Ian Fanges. Do you know Ian yet?
No, I haven't met him.
You need to know him. He's a well-respected artist and painter. If you message me on Facebook, I'll introduce you.
Sure.
His painting is the very best in the O scale community, hands down. Some of these guys have played around a little bit, like Alan Anderson with Scanning Human People, of friends he knows. And then, the Dan Wolshin figures all over the internet now.
Yeah.
But there's an opportunity for that. And I think there is a market for scale. Of course, cost comes into it, and people go, oh my God, that figure is $15 or $20, but they don't understand what goes into it. And but you'll do well. All you need is one wealthy millionaire customer who's doing a layout. They don't care. They want to see all their friends on their layout. They'll pay you whatever it is.
Yeah. And I mean, look, there's lots of people that are very happy with, the Bachmann locomotive. God bless them. It's not what I want, but if it makes them happy, then that's great. That's not my market. And I want the people I want the odd, I want people to challenge me. I mean, I offer things like, HO scale crabs and lobsters. They're I can't even see them. I mean, I could show you a picture of them on my finger and, they're microscopic, but somebody wanted 100 crabs for their layout and they were willing to pay for it. So I made them.
That's sort of cool.
And it was fun. I mean, the weirder and the smaller and the wilder, the better, because I get a kick out of it.
Now you're talking Hollywood style things, or people do something crazy, but there are things like that, like mice and rats, and they're very much there. I'd be, that's very cool. I'm glad I met you. That's a fun business, and so it's hopefully it's paying your bills now. And it's giving you a little bit of sense of, you're not desperate, because we're probably similar ages. I'm 58, and it's, I'm not stupid enough to realize I could wake up tomorrow and say, yeah, Kevin, we just got to let you go. We appreciate everything you did, but what are you doing for me today? And I'm like, I don't know. Well, you're gone. That's the nasty world we're in, but I'm ready for that. And it's cool that bridged the gap for you. Because
and I mean, we'll see where it goes. I mean, right now, look, I mean, it's like, like Jim and everyone says, you're not going to get rich in this business. But if you can do what you enjoy, and it's only been 9 months.
You can get rich in this business. That is one of those freaking myths I wish people would shut the hell up about. You can,
right,
dude.
We'll talk offline.
You can. No, that's holy shit. You got started, you've had 500 orders, you're a nobody still. You're still technically a nobody, right? And you've already got momentum.
Yeah.
You will go 2-3 years at it. You know what? You might, scale is a big freaking problem. You know what doesn't exist in the O scale world? What figures don't exist in the O scale world? Go.
I've got my pen ready.
Come on, guys. Who does O scale? What figures in HO don't exist?
Well, realistic modern is what I heard everybody ask for.
No, not that.
The problem with scale figures, most of them look like somebody out of a coffin with a blob on top.
Okay, true.
I don't care what scale there's a couple of very famous, won't mention them, S-scale figure manufacturers, and every single one of their figures look like an alien from a horror show.
Yeah.
They look gross. They're disgusting.
Sort of reminds me of this Canadian girl I dated once, but that's another story.
That is another story.
There's your alien.
Oh
So-
yeah, I know you've got the grays.
The gray.
Um,
Okay, I can't believe you guys didn't notice this. Realistic women. There are no realistic.
oh yeah, they've either got way too much chest or lopsided or something. They don't.
No, there's no realistic. If you want to do depression era, you can't find a depression era woman. What
Well, you know,
else now? I'm making this easy for you. What else is missing in the
Well,
depression?
I'll tell you, it's funny you mentioned women, and I mentioned this on the presentation I did, I guess, on Saturday with Jim, on the last meetup. A lot of people have asked me for realistic female railroaders because they exist. And most women on layouts, especially layouts of a certain generation, are not, well, they're working women, but they're not working on the railroad. Let's put that.
Right. And so,
I'm working on some realistic female model railroaders right now.
right. So you nailed it. So like if you wanted to do a scene of like a hotel or a boarding house and you had a woman there that's running it with an apron and that does not exist. What else doesn't exist? Children. There are no freaking children.
Oh, interesting.
Only children I know of are one S-scale manufacturer and Pricer.
You named it. And what is Pricer? What scale is Pricer?
HO.
Oh, okay. After that, what are they?
Well, I think they have some O scale, but I don't
No,
know.
no. We get this O scale, O gauge conversation again. Let me slap your hand. They do European O gauge 143.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, okay. Well,
See,
I
this
was
is knowing
saying
you.
O
So,
in
so you
general.
can see knowing the market. This is how I do. I study this. I know exactly what the market needs. So, children, there are no freaking children in model air. How cool would it have to be a little boy standing there in a scene with a loop or a ball or they don't exist.
Well, let me give you an example. Kevin, let me give you an example. I just built from scratch a whole 1930s playground of all the swings and the jungle gym, all of that stuff. I'm having to try to sculpt figures because there are no kids figures.
Oh, don't sculpt it, Jim. I'll print them up for you.
So I'm trying to figure out how to sculpt those figures.
They don't exist. They don't exist, right?
They don't have it. Now, the other thing that I've been making lately is I've been scratch building late 20s, early, mid 1930s automobiles. And a lot of them are convertibles. There aren't any figures.
Right. Most of the O scale figures are in other scales, which are frankly too big. They're in 1 to 43. A lot of them are even in the totally not existent anymore 8mm scale, which is another 0 scale. There's about 4 or 5 of them. And the stuff coming out of Europe and stuff is all in these bigger scales. And you try to put them at a table or in a car or in a passenger car in American O scale, and they don't fit.
I mean,
There you go. Why don't they fit? So here's the other thing is so this is sort of cool if you look. So like in a Bachmann locomotive, it's very hard to get an engineer into the locomotive. If I were a person making figures, I'd be making a figure that comes in parts so you can put it in there and glue it in pieces to get it inside the engine. But it's just narrow gauge modeling speaking here. So just by that, how many new product ideas and what commission do I get off of this?
Well, it's
but
funny.
see,
You bring 1/1,000,000th of a penny per idea.
but I'll take it. I'll take it. That's more. I tell enough people I just, but that's sort of the issue here is there are this many products and all of a sudden we got it. Every person here going, oh yeah, these figures really do suck. A lot of figures suck. I've seen some of them. So I get my figures from 6 suppliers. And the reason is the pictures look good on the website and you get them and the molds are so beat up, it looks like a piece of chewing gum with arms.
Yeah.
And
I see heads going up and down there. They know. So
Kevin, excuse me. Listen, we've been going now over 2 hours here, guys.
Really?
Well, you're popular and people why did you think I wanted you on here? Because I know you've got all this great knowledge and there's a lot of people that have questions about this stuff. And you're the best person that I can think of to answer their
Well,
questions.
there's a couple others, but here's a guy that sees a thing and like I go, if I had the wherewithal, I'd love to have Bernard making a whole shitload of figures for me, but he couldn't make money on that, right? By the time he has to give me a commission stuff and all that, and what my customers on average willing to pay. So he's great being there by himself and coming out there. I have to think I know my customers' price points.
I like to think that the mom and pop businesses like Bernard has right now, like Fran has, like Ed wants to have, and all the rest of these. This to me, Kevin, is the heart and soul of our hobby.
It is, but it's coming back right now.
If we ever lose this, if we ever lose these people, and we stop encouraging these kind of people to come into the hobby and start businesses, then the hobby as a whole is going to lose a significant benefit.
Well, it's somebody like Bernard, his I don't know how big he wants us to get, but the sky's the limit because, well, honestly, there's no competition. He's going to come to the same realization and me, and all of a sudden wake up one day, oh my God, there's just no competition here. And then start snowballing forward, and what you're doing is needed. Now you want to have fun with it. There's a lot of things you can do. There's some of the figures personally, I hate all the topless figures. When I see that on a layout, that's just personal choice. I don't like that stuff. Don't do it. No. I think it's tacky. I know some guys have it. Okay, that's fine. That's your thing. I don't like it. I think pets, there's a huge need for pets. There's a huge need for rodents. I'd love to have a set of rodents to sell. Big old rat.
You see this guy? You'll enjoy him.
Oh, outstanding. It looks like my dog.
He's pooping.
You need to put the little blobs at the bottom so they. But
that's the craftsman part. You've got to supply your own blobs.
But I think if you have that, but it is real. How many people have a dog? Well, that's what dogs do, or they lift their leg.
Yeah, you got to do the fire hydrant and the dog wetting it down. But
all right, listen.
There's like one or two people doing this, and that's it.
Is there anybody else that wants to ask Kevin a question here?
Well, I'd like to talk to Kevin for a second. I agree with a lot of things he said, especially about some of these guys who are on these YouTube videos who don't even have a layout. And they think they're experts. And it's really that's harmful for the hobby.
These guys are harmful, and I bitch slap them on Facebook.
Yeah.
So they don't normally know who I am, and then I start asking questions and I get blocked.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
but that's what we have to do.
I know a number of my friends. I was a member of the Maple Leaf Mafia.
Aha.
So a lot of those guys.
I do.
So, yeah, I think one of the things though, I kind of disagree with you a little bit. There are some people who should not get into any kind of business if they don't have the specific skill to propel them. Like Bernard, he knows his 3D printing backwards and forwards. The
guy looks like a mad scientist right now. Did you see him, Dylan? You might have competition there.
But if you don't have the other gentleman that was on that was making those locomotive, obviously he has 3D. He understands 3D printing. If you don't understand your craft, don't get into it yet. Be very good at it and then start it. Guys who do locomotive repairs, the gentleman, if you don't know exactly what you're doing, you're gonna put you're gonna get into a bad situation right off the bat, and it's hard to recover from that.
But that's where you go slow. And we used to have this sale. I've got a funny ass story. So I was working this tool company, and one of our salesmen sold something we created a prototype with no guts, and we showed it at a annual business meeting. It was a metal box, and the wire to it was not real, and the box was empty and was painted beautifully and had like all these touch dials thing. It wasn't a real product. The guy went to Chrysler and he sold it. Oh, it was ugly. So I never forget, we screwed up so bad there. The guy's name was Ernie. I'm not gonna, it's a small world. He was big. He was like in charge. And he says, you can pick up your goddamn tool in the parking lot. We're like, oh, come on. It literally was in the parking lot. One of these big Chrysler, factories. And we're like, yeah, it took us a long time to figure out what the hell we were building and making there. We had no clue.
Yeah.
But
I think that there's a fine line there, just starting out and learning your craft. You'd want to do that a little bit locally. As soon as you go out, and unfortunately or fortunately, the internet can be your best friend or it can be your worst friend. Because if you get a bad name out there, look out.
well, sometimes too, what I've learned is the best way to learn something is to get an order. And so if you can manage that slowly, not where you take dozens of engines that are all screwed up, you take one and you work through it and you get some people, okay, can you help me figure out what's going on here? Yeah. Then you master that one, you send it back, you get a check mark, and then you go, okay, every time now I get that, I know what to do. Let's take the next engine, and that's covering your ass.
Now, as far as the gears go, if he can get, it can be the intermediate guy and get his buddy to build them, and he's got them.
Well, here's something. This is crazy. So you try to fix a Shay, okay? Yeah. You wouldn't know that Bachmann. Okay, how big is Bachmann? Do you know they put a limit on the number of parts you can buy from as one buyer? Do you know that? There's a limit.
Well.
How the hell? How are you this multi-million-dollar corporation, whatever they are, and you're putting a limit on a freaking little part? I mean,
there's a reason for that.
I know what the reason is, but my God, there's a business opportunity. No. I joke with my customers and I said, there's no limit on how much you can buy. The
problem with Bachmann and some of the other companies that get their stuff done in China,
Bazinga,
they use very crappy molds. And once those molds start to wear out, they don't make it again. It's gone. And that's the reason they put limits on people, is because they've only got so many. And when they're gone, they're gone. It doesn't matter that, like Dylan said, they used that same gear on 15 other locomotives. They cut a new mold for whatever crazy reason instead of making a good one to begin with. The other thing is that U.S. tax system gets them, because if you're going to make gears out of nylon or Delrin or one of those types of plastics, you have to make them oversized, let them age, and then rebore them. You can't just make them and throw them in a locomotive, because the plastic will cure while it's sitting on the shelf. And what do you get? A nice big crack. Because
exactly. So you understand the nature of the problem.
Yeah, and I understand the tax problem, but how much are they spending on replacing gears?
They don't. They gave up. They stopped.
Yeah, because they couldn't keep up. They could solve the whole problem, and they have with some of the later products.
For sure.
They make the gears and leave them in China.
But, guys, does anybody else out there have a question for Kevin on their business?
Hey, Jim, it was great having you tonight. We'll close up the shop after we're done.
Kevin, all I'm going to do is shut the meeting down if I can, and then Dylan and you and all the rest of you guys can have the rest of the evening.
Jim, why don't you go make us some coffee? Go make coffee and come on back when you're done.
But wait a minute, there's only we're almost hitting 2.5 hours here in this show. Dylan's got to get rest for tomorrow.
No, he does not. He's young. He'll recover.
Anyway.
Well, Kevin, you can always hand it to me.
Kevin, thank you so much for being here tonight. I can't thank you enough. I really do appreciate
Well,
it.
yeah, I think there's a need, maybe there's a working group, we're seeing all the right things. I think a lot of the right people are getting together. You're starting to see the interconnections really growing here as new people come in. But like Dennis, we're in a very dangerous situation here with the lack of manufacturers in the hobby. We're in a very, very dangerous, I don't know where I'm going. Now I can tell you on my paint, I went from just doing, okay, I'm doing flow quill and polyscale. And then I bought it, maybe 1,000 bottles of Model Master the day after I heard, Rust-Oleum shutting testers down. And now I'm all of a sudden, I found myself in today into Humbrol. I found myself in all these other things, people going, and I'm now in the obsolete hobby supply business, and it's massive. I can't keep up. And we really need to groom these guys. And I think maybe the next thing is we have an Edward call. Okay. And we go and just sort of like you have that thing Shark Tank, you get him a mentor and saying, okay, let's go through and help you with your business plan. Maybe that's the next step. Maybe our call to action is we help people take their idea and we help them walk it forward. And that might be
that's Kevin, that is exactly the demand that's out there. And while I know you're busy and I know other people are busy that have the kind of capabilities you have, that is exactly what needs to be done. No question about it.
Yeah, I think we got a couple good, Robbie's still rough at the seam, rough at the edges. He's got to figure out where he wants to be. But I think Ed is the next one. And his big thing is he's got to figure out why Walther's failed.
Yeah, and Jay, Jay's got all the potential, in my opinion. Jay's got tremendous potential. But, getting there and talking to you for 30 minutes and getting that feel good and, yeah, it's possible. Yeah, I can do this. But then you're back in front of your television by yourself and there's no help. There is nowhere to go. There is nobody that you feel comfortable in calling and talking to. That mentorship, I'm telling you, is critical to the success of a lot of the people that want to get involved in becoming model manufacturers.
Maybe what we do is the next one is a closed meeting. You figure out who the board is or the coaching team.
Well, let me tell you. Hold it. Let me tell you this.
Okay.
There are a couple of people on this call tonight that know about this already. I have the first meeting of the kind of group that you're talking about already set up. And depending on how that organizational meeting goes, then hopefully that may turn into exactly what you and I are talking about this minute. Because I have seen this. I've talked to too many people. Trying to get these virtual train shows going has really opened my eyes to what's happening out there with the model manufacturers, because I see it. I talk to them. I hear it in their voice. Some of them are like a friend. They're not in it to become billionaires. They're in it as a hobby. And it is a hobby for them, and they're going to do so much, and that's all they want to do. I've had manufacturers on these shows like you're on right now tell me, Jim, I don't want any advertising. Thank you so much, but I don't want to get any more known than I am right now, because I don't want any more business than I have right now. So there's that part of the manufacturing base that's out there. I hear it. I see it all the time.
Yeah, I see it more often than not.
And then there is the other part of the manufacturer, like Bernard and like some other people I could easily name, that are in it for a business, and do see a potential and do see the light at the end of the tunnel a little bit. But at the same time, they have so many questions and they have so many concerns, and they've heard so many stories, and they know that, oh gosh, this is hard. This is impossible. No, I can't do that yet. Oh, you ought to do this. And there's so many people that once they have an idea, come to them with 1,000, you ought to do this. And if they listen to all of those people, pretty soon they're out of business, because there's just not enough time in the day to do all of the, you ought to do this.
No pay attention.
And so there's a lot of people in those situations I see. I hear it in their voice. And then there are the people that are scared to talk to their customers. Literally, they just, talking to the customer is maybe more difficult than writing up the instructions for their kit. And a lot of people have trouble with that. That is their main problem. What is the hardest thing about kit manufacturing? Writing instructions. So there's a lot of need. There's a lot of issues. When Jay said, let's talk about pricing. And he said, well, I'll talk to you about that privately and we can do that later. Pricing, I hear pricing. I hear that all the time. This is a major issue, particularly with people that have, like Ed's idea, what is my price for this? Not what's it going to cost me? They haven't gone to that level of knowing what their cost structure is. Their first question is, what can I sell it for? So pricing is a key issue to a lot of people trying to get to become model manufacturers or model sellers in the.
Good night, Bernard. Hey, don't hurt your arms when you leave, okay?
Good night, everyone. Thanks. It was a really great conversation.
And let's talk again offline. I've got a lot of ideas for you.
Awesome.
Lot of ideas.
Well, every one of my figures pretty much was either something I wanted for myself or a request from someone. So it's the ideas of the community that fuel the business. And I live for that type of request. So the weirder, the wilder, the smaller, the more fun, the better. So good night all. And thanks, Jim. A great conversation tonight.
Yep.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
So anyway.
Let's just keep working. I think what we need to do now is get some of these people moving. There's got to be, there's got to be more people wanting to start business. Jim, it's bad. It's bad. I mean, there's just the amount of manufacturers out there is like so small. I'd love Fran to do more, but realistic as Fran doesn't want to, and I have to accept that. We could use 3 or 4 friends right now in the hobby.
But if there's a possibility that Fran can get with Ed and Ed wants to do this part and that part and so forth and can free Fran up to do other stuff, there's no telling where maybe the 2 of them could go. I have no idea.
Yeah, you just never know.
But the linkages here of one manufacturer helping another is a totally underestimated part of the hobby business as far as I can see.
Right.
Because there's a lot of things. For example, you say, well, talk to Dylan and I'll help a little bit. Dylan has an awful lot to offer other manufacturers, not just I'll make this part for you, but how I found this or how I researched that. There's a lot of knowledge within the small manufacturing base that I don't think is being shared, either because it's considered proprietary or because no one's asked. And I hear that from manufacturers. I hear that from people talking, saying, well, I wonder who I could ask that question to. There's a lot of that in the hobby out there, and there's no place, there's nowhere to go. Who do you trust is part of the problem here. And I think trust is so key to it, and that's why I come back to the word mentoring. Kevin, there needs to be something set up. There needs to be a way for people to get the kind of help and answer the kind of questions that they have. A lot of them have the same questions, but they just don't feel there's a source out there.
Usually this type of knowledge is very expensive to buy. I'm professionally trained. I just wasn't a professional, but I was professionally trained. All the steps on how to commercialize a product to market. There aren't many people who can say that and then running this, but I won't charge because I don't believe in that. I think that's unethical for me to charge. My gift is to pass it forward. That's why I'm nudging Dylan a little bit, because Dylan, you're not going to be here another 20 years. I may not be here another 30 years. Well, Dylan will be. Dylan should be. So we've got to pay. It's part of passing the knowledge. And Dylan knows the stumbling blocks he had very early on because he depended on other manufacturers. So I think we need to pick these people and go in there and maybe just teach them basic product development skills, how to identify a market, how to find pricing, How do I understand that? And, you know, we could possibly just do a seminar, but should be closed, you know, very limited, you know, who is truly trying to develop a new product and how do you do it? And it's called it's called StageGate. There's actually a proper business name to it called StageGate, and I can teach you that.
I agree. I think it's wonderful. I really do. You'll be one of the instructors. Absolutely.
Yeah, but no, they don't know who to ask because people want to charge you consulting fees, and screw that. You know.
But it's all over out there. Trust me, it's all over out there. All right, listen, Kevin, thanks so very much. I want to have you back again, and we'll make arrangements to do that.
First of the year, starting to get busy again with work. It's a bit strange.
Yeah.
Got one of these big hyperscale customers I feeling better about. If I win their project, that will mean I get to go to San Antonio.
Oh, wonderful. It's a beautiful place. Beautiful place.
It is. Where do you live? Where are you again?
I'm in Florida.
Oh, I hate Florida.
Well, good. Anyway, next Saturday, December the 5th at 7 o'clock, our featured modeler is Aaron, who owns Apogee Locomotive Works. You may never have heard of his company. He's a neat guy. He does some neat things, and I think you're really going to enjoy hearing about his business. And I hope you learned something tonight. I hope you enjoyed it. I know I did. And thank you so much for coming. And Dylan,